Today on the Rainmaker Family Show, we interviewed Jashin Howell, who is the founder of the FAM Project. And he is all about creating connection and having fun with your kids to take them outside of just like the digital landscape and off of our devices, which I think is such an important thing in this day and age. Like, I love our phones. I love the power of the internet and what we're able to accomplish through them. But we have to be able to put those aside to not get the dopamine hit from our phones and to connect with people right in front of you. So this episode is all about that, how to connect and just the importance of that, as well as Jason's powerful story.
Today on the show, we have a powerful story of how one entrepreneur really went through the battle for not only his business, but his family. On the show today, I want to welcome officially Jashin. Welcome, Jashin.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
So good.
You guys are amazing. I tell you, I've been watching you guys and I'm just impressed. Young entrepreneurs, raising family right, doing the right things, and then teaching other families how to do the same thing. I tell you, it's so needed in the world today. So I applaud you guys for everything that you're doing.
Thanks, Jashin.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to get into what you're cooking up with the FAM project and all those things. But before we do, I feel like there's so much power in hearing the journey to get to where you are today. And that also shows us why it's so important for what you're pioneering in the future. So take us back, how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you get into this entrepreneurial world of kind of doing something outside of the normal 9 to 5?
So I've always felt like I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional upbringing. I didn't have a lot of entrepreneurs around me in my family. It was always, just go get a job. There wasn't really schooling in my family history or culture. And so, unfortunately, I had some struggles growing up, and I fell into addiction at a pretty young age. I got introduced to drugs and alcohol by my parents, unfortunately. And then I lost my entire 20s to an addiction to crack cocaine. Found myself on the streets. And then I actually got introduced to God. A friend of mine, his mom called me up out of the blue. I hadn't talked to her in like 13 years. And she just calls me up and she tells me that she's been feeling impressed that, God was telling her that I was ready to receive him in my life. And I'm like, okay, and it was at a point that I was ready. I was open. And I think it's important for us to make really big shifts in our life. We have to be humble and open and willing to change. And I was at that point, and 9 months later, after that phone call, I was living in Wisconsin with my dad. I never grew up with him in my life. And so I thought I had a lot of my family issues and my issues in general because he wasn't there. And you see that happen a lot with fatherless families. And so I moved out there to get to know him better. And quickly I found all the same stuff in, Wisconsin that I did where I came from, which was Tucson, Arizona. And 9 months after that phone call I got from her, I found myself on the streets. I was there for about 10 days. And I was about ready to end my life. And then I remembered I walked into a Taco Bell, and I always get emotional about this. And I saw a guy pray over his food. And it reminded me of that phone call that I'd gotten 9 months prior. And it made me realize that God has always been there. He's been touching on me all throughout my life. And I was just finally ready to receive him. And so I turned myself into a homeless shelter, spent several days there. In order to be there, you had to listen to these sermons. So it was kind of like perfect for me. It just fell into place. And then I wish I could say that my life turned around right away, but it took me about 3 years to really learn how to live differently. I even came back to Arizona, fell into the same traps that I was into before because I didn't change my environment. I tried to help some of my friends, hey, I've got God in my life now. Things are so great. And then I put myself in their environment. And next thing you know, I'm falling trapped to the way that they live their lives. And I ended up using again. And it took me another 2 years to get out of that addiction. Ended up in halfway houses, spent time in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's tent city. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but very well-known sheriff that would put people in pink underwear and striped shirts and have them in these tents. And so fortunately, I had work furlough and I was able to, kind of maneuver my way around there. And it really was the start to me overcoming my addiction, because I had another guy that was bunked next to me, very similar situation, found God, fell again. Me and him are bunked next to each other. We read the scriptures while we're there, and it transformed both of our lives. And so I never went back to that addiction after that. So that's kind of the start of that piece. And so since I was there at that point, I'm like, gosh, I lost my entire 20s. What do I do now? How do I catch up to everybody else who's full on in their careers, businesses, whatever they're doing? I'm like, I've got to catch up to everybody else. And so what I decided to do was I owned an auto glass company. I didn't like that at all. It wasn't for me. And then I got into affiliate marketing and learning how to sell other people's products and services. And one of the products and services that we were promoting was personal growth, and it was perfect for me. And this was right when I found my wife, and so me and her actually became an entrepreneur family together at that time. And yeah, so that started our journey in the entrepreneurial world, and we've been married for 20 years now. So
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. So came from kind of more of a traditional business, doing the auto glass thing.
yeah,
Then this affiliate marketing thing caught your eye. Like, whoa, like you can make money
yes.
online just by selling someone else's product.
When this wasn't even online, we didn't have
Wow.
online at this time. This was 2002, so there wasn't really online. So
Wow. So offline affiliate marketing.
yes, exactly. So we were doing newspapers, we were putting flyers
Wow.
on cars, we were just doing all kinds of non-traditional approach to finding people. And then it was in 2005 that I actually found internet marketing, and then it just changed the game for me from that point on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, I feel like I'm really just supposed to honor you and say, I think what you've done is absolutely incredible. I mean, to go from being, having these addictions at a young age to wrestling through that. And now, being clean and sober and showing people that there's a different way. I just think that shows a lot about who you are and your grit and just the, wanting that something more. And I think that's a really big deal that, people, whether it's an addiction or not, or it's just feeling like they're just, hitting their head against a wall and not getting anywhere, and just choosing to never give up. So I just think that's super powerful. I love bringing people on the show that have just, face different hardships and just committed to no, I'm gonna shift and I'm gonna change. So I think that's really incredible. And as you're sharing about getting into marketing or affiliate marketing, before there was kind of the internet and people using this term affiliate marketing, when you were passing out flyers or whatever it is of selling somebody else's product, when you were doing that in the early days with you and your wife being an entrepreneur couple, I'm sure you probably came across people who are what are you doing? This is weird. You should just go get a job.
Well, we were even saying that to ourselves, to be honest with you. It's what are we doing? You know what I mean? It's and that's what's interesting is as much as we have people that are well-meaning out there, when you're going down this entrepreneurial path and this endeavor and doing things that's out of the norm, it's not typical, especially if you didn't grow up that way. A lot of outsiders or people that are well-meaning families or friends or whatever, they criticize what it is that you're doing and they make you feel wrong for it. And so a lot of times we question ourselves as an entrepreneur. Should I be going down this path, or should I just go back to school or get a job or something like that? And for the most part, I've wrestled with that. I've always had mindset issues. When you grow up in a very dysfunctional upbringing, you realize that a lot of your childhood conditioning kind of determines how you think and how you feel about yourself and your confidence. And a lot of the questions that you continue to ask yourself. And, I even struggle with some of the same stuff today. And I don't think it ever goes away. I think that we just dampen the voice when we continue to move forward in faith and continue to take action, And so what I realized then at that time is that, if we're going to have success, it's going to be up to us. And I remember we were 6 months into our endeavor, and And we didn't have a pot to piss in at this time. And I remember we were in Tempe, Arizona, and Tanya and I were just walking on the streets of downtown Mill Avenue near ASU. And I remember it was a bleak moment for us. And it seems like at the darkest time, you're just right on the cusp of something magical happening in your life, and where the miracles lie. And so we just kept pushing through, and it was that next month that we made a $15,000 month, and then the month after that a $35,000 month, and it was just like it started getting better, right? And we started realizing that, man, up here determines everything that we have in our lives. We ultimately are the greatest creators of what we want to have happen in our lives, but it all starts with our thinking, and then and followed up with action. And so for us, that was a big lesson that we can overcome anything. And I've already had that lesson with drugs and alcohol, but at the same time, this is different, but it's the same principles. How do I get out of my own way, and how do I surround myself with the right people that can encourage me, uplift me, and be my champion? And that's what you guys are doing, right? You're finding people that want to become entrepreneurs, young moms, or families that just want to up level their income and create a new path for themselves. And they might not have come from entrepreneurialism or somewhere where they even had any experiences growing up that way, but they're in this new environment now that you guys are creating, and it's fun, it's exciting, and you guys really provide the tools. And I've seen a lot of your stuff. I've gone through all of your product, for the most part, and it's incredible. I was blown away by it, and that's why I reached out to you guys in the first place. And so I'm excited to work with you guys and to help get your mission and message out to the world, because that's what I'm all about. I'm not about building anything internally. It's how do I share this good stuff with other people? Because with what I'm doing now, it's all about helping families learn the lost art of connection outside of technology. And you talk about addiction, we're losing our kids right now to digital addiction. These things right here are what I call the new drug. It's the new gateway drug. Between 2 and 7, a lot of times we're handing our children phones. They're highly addictive. They create dopamine in the brain. They do exact same thing that drugs and alcohol do. And our kids are now starting off this imprint period of their life with some potential challenges if we're not careful, right? And so I started a company called the FAM Project, Family Awareness Movement. It's all about creating awareness around these specific topics that parents are just unaware with how to deal with a lot of the modern world that we're living in today. And so we just want to find the best resources and equip them with tools and strategies and everything. And up-leveling someone's income is really important, because I know the biggest cause for divorce is financial issues. And so that's why I'm really passionate about helping people find alternatives to the regular job, where it just takes you away from home and you don't really get the freedom that most people are looking for.
It's so powerful coming from you, because you had, like you said, drugs, alcohol, that stuff started in the home for you, right? I started as a kid. And for a lot of these families who, this whole thing is really about awareness. They just hand their phone to their kid, not really knowing what could happen, and we don't focus on all the negative what ifs, but we do know that if anyone who has a phone knows, anyone who has a phone and social media knows, you can just get all of a sudden I go to Facebook to do something else, and then 30 minutes has disappeared and I don't even remember what I came to do.
Yeah.
And it's this, there's something about it. And so I love that you're pioneering this, especially from just your history of having breakthrough, with these things that came from the home. And I feel like so many entrepreneurs have to go through this journey of whatever that thing was that you grew up in, and we're not blaming parents, but we're just saying everyone grows up in an environment. Everyone grows up around mindsets. Everyone grows up around having friends that have certain, mindsets. Right. And a lot of times entrepreneurship is kind of breaking out of those. It's killing those mindsets and adopting new ones. I mean, for you, it's so interesting how the affiliate product you were doing was personal development. At the time when you guys were doing the affiliate thing, were you guys listening to the personal development?
Bob Proctor was the product.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I love him. And so that was, my introduction into that, Andy Andrews,
Yeah.
just all of these great thought leaders and experts. We were able to, travel around the world. So we would go to different locations. I mean, in our first years of our marriage, we went to like, 8 different trips, all with the company. And that's the environment that we're creating with the Fam Project is how do we get around other family entrepreneurs, travel the world, and how do we really teach our children entrepreneurship? How do we up level our marriage, and really take our lives to the next level and be more intentional in how we raise our kids in the home. And you talk about, getting caught away on social media when kids are, or even we are on screens, because we're all subject to the same issues. 18 or 16 years into our marriage, I found that we were almost going to collapse as a family unit. Me and my wife were so disconnected at the time. I had spent so much time working, and this is how I did work, right? And so it seemed like I was always on my phone, and we were at this point where we were gonna call it quits, and it's challenging to talk about, but there's so many beautiful things that came from that experience. Tanya and I worked through some really, really tough times. You know, um, she had some challenges when she was younger. I had some challenges when I was younger. Mine was abandonment. So when my parents would leave me, I would always fear that, like that my wife was going to leave me. So if there was any sense that she was pulling away from me, I would pull away from her first so that I didn't, and then next thing you know, we have this weird nuance in our relationship, and she's doing it for a totally different reason. It had nothing to do with me, had everything to do with, her experiences as a kid. And then I'm doing it just as a protection mechanism because I've been hurt so many times as a kid. And so when we worked through that, our relationship just really shifted and changed. And our kids are a little bit older, so unfortunately, we gave our daughter a cell phone at about age 12. She was babysitting at the time, and we didn't, that's when no one knew anything. It's like we didn't know what we didn't know. And then we waited several years later to give our son a cell phone, and man, I wish we didn't even do that because they get on social media, and the pornography industry is targeting our youth right now. Most people don't realize that between ages 8 and 11, most kids are introduced to pornography. The 10 and under age bracket represents 22% of the online porn consumption of the 18 and under age group. And that's appalling to me. And 97% of our male boys are affected by pornography, meaning that they see it or watch it. And 87% are the girls. Most people think it's a boy problem, but it's not. And we actually have several people on our board, one of which their daughter actually struggled with porn addiction. And so for her, she never told anybody because she was so fearful that she was the only one dealing with it, right? And I think that's why I talk about these hard things, because I think the more vulnerable that we can be in our relationships and in our communication with other people that are our families and friends and other people that are out there, to know that, hey, look, you're not alone. I'm struggling just as much as you are in this same area that you are. So, we don't have to pretend that everything's perfect on Facebook. And then deep down inside, things are shambles in our home and family life. And then next thing you know, your best friend's getting a divorce. And it's like, what? Where did that come from? And so what we're out to do is just how do we help families really, kind of uncover the lost art of connection, creating alternatives to the screen, being more intentional in the home. And I love this study that they did. There was a guy by the name of Johan Hari. He's got an amazing podcast, and he talks about chasing the scream. And one of his podcasts is Everything You Know About Addiction Is Wrong. And in there, he talks about this rat study that they do. And they would take rats in a cage and put them in the cage and isolate them and give them 2 options: morphine-laced water on one side and regular water on the other. And every single time, what do you think the rats would choose with that environment? Morphine-laced water. Yeah, exactly. And so everyone would overdose and die. One guy said, wait a second. Bruce Alexander said, I'm going to create a different experiment. I'll call it Rat Park. I'm going to create hamster wheels, all kinds of things for the rats to do. Girl and boy rats working together in, not isolated, but actually in a communal environment. and I'll have the same experiment, morphine-laced water on one side, regular water on the other. Not once was there a rat overdose. And very rarely, if ever, did the rats choose the morphine-laced water. Why? It's because they had connection and alternatives, something else to do. And so that's what is so important right now, is for us to learn that lost art of connection. I love what Brene Brown talks about, because vulnerability actually equals connection. The more vulnerable we are, the more we can open up to each other about hard things. And even though sometimes people get a little, because when I talk about these hard things that I've been through, sometimes people, either take it a couple different ways. Some people love it, and then they open up, but other people, they judge it. And it's like, why are we judging each other for things like this? We should be more welcoming, tolerant, loving, and kind. And so anyway, I know I'm talking about a utopia of a world. I call it famtopia. But what we're wanting to do is create a perfect world for not so perfect people, where we're learning these principles. And it doesn't mean that we implement them perfectly. If anything, I'm perfectly imperfect is what I am, So, and I don't have all the answers either. I just go out there and I find it. And that's why we're creating a community of like-minded families that just want to make a difference. I call it getting mad together, So anyway, I'll stop talking because I could go on forever.
So good. So important.
I think it's so powerful. Like, one thing that, we have definitely very similarly been digging into childhood things, and it's very interesting how sometimes I feel like what your, destiny is, your calling in life, like the thing that you're really called to make impact in, is often the thing that, like, I feel like a lot of kids can fall into a trap in early in their development, right? Like, if someone's meant to be, like, I feel like if someone is really gifted in art, right? How many stories do you hear of, like, the artists who, like, third grade teacher told them, you'll never be anything, blah, 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 like, and really try to shut that thing down? Or like Michael Jordan, like, he was never, like, you never make the basketball team. Like, there's always this pushback on the thing that is actually what you're actually called to step into. Yeah. And I just say that because I think as you're saying this, maybe there's even people having kind of inner revelations of, like, oh my gosh, this thing I've been being drawn to, the reason I've been felt like I've been held back from stepping into that thing is because of this lie that I started believing as a kid. And it's so interesting with you, Jason, that, like, honestly, the thing that you're stepping into is the very kind of counterfeit that you fell into, And so, like, when I think of, right, like drugs and alcohol, right, there's an experiential element of that, right? Where like, there's kind of the high, the experience.
Yeah.
But there's also like, there's also kind of this escapism and like disconnection in there.
Yep.
Right. And the opposite of those things really is like what you are stepping into creating. Like, it's actually like that was the counterfeit version of what you're actually creating now, which is like, let's create healthy experiences for families that are life transformational, and let's create connection. Let's create that, like, that healthy fathering and mothering and like connection. And it's so interesting how there's like a parallel between those two things, where they're almost so close, but one is kind of the counterfeit, like, spiral down version, and one is what you're actually called to do. Absolutely. And so I call that out because, like, we see that in our own lives. We are doing a lot of this inner work right now, and we have been for the last like 5 years, because we believe, like, people that are going to be the ones who are pioneering and carrying, like, laying strong foundations that people can build on, like creating movements, like the movement makers. You got to really strengthen the foundations. You got to look at the cracks. You got to be vulnerable. You got to ask the hard questions, because otherwise you build the business and then the marriage falls apart. You build the business and the pressure, and then the kids fall apart, right? Like, there's like something there. And so it's so important to have these conversations. So Jason, thank you so much for like opening up and being vulnerable with us. And I just kind of call it out because I feel like there's listeners listening. I don't know. What would you say to Jason, someone who is listening, is like, man, I feel like I am supposed to step into this bigger thing. Like, I'm supposed to like I feel like I have a calling on my life to do this bigger thing, but they feel like there may be some of these foundational cracks that they need to address, like this kind of inner work they need to do, personal development they need to do before they start stepping into those things, or
Absolutely.
as they start stepping into those things, I should say.
Yeah. It's you've heard the whole adage, turning our mess into a message, our pain into our purpose, and so I honestly believe that is what we're called to do. I believe that we are here to go through this life experience and then turn around and help those people that are going through exactly what we went through, right? And it's our obligation. I really believe that it is. And that's why we have this calling on our hearts to do that. And I think all of us are there. All of us have a story. It's not like I'm unique. I just have, a pretty, uh, you know, daunting past, you know what I mean, that I was able to overcome, but it doesn't mean anything less for anybody else's path in life or what they experienced, And I think as an entrepreneur, you really realize how important your own personal growth is to your success as an entrepreneur. It's very rare that you find people that have the level of success that we all aspire to have, like our peers and the people that we're looking at, and it's like, man, they're doing a great job, without doing personal growth work, without really digging deep and finding out those areas that they just need to refine a bit and fill in those cracks, and obviously I'm a believer in God, and so I believe that He makes up a lot of the difference, but at the same time, we do have to do our own work. It requires us taking action as well. And, the moment that we dismiss things or don't think that we can change is the moment that we're, I love what Brandon Bouchard says, we're either in a fixed mindset or in a growth mindset, and a fixed mindset is like, I can't change this part about me. Or you have some kind of a spat with your spouse and it's like, oh, this will always be this way. It's like, no, take some inventory, and look at yourself and what am I making this mean? Where is this really coming from? Because there's a root to most of it, and it has nothing to do with the situation. It has everything to do with something else. Until you find that root, pluck it out, like getting rid of the weeds, then you can start making some real shifts, because now you have new soil to build upon, and you're planting new seeds, and that has to be nurtured. So it takes work in order to master that, but it's okay to fall down. It's like, again, I'm not perfect. I made some major mistakes. Addiction showed up in other areas. I think everybody's got addiction in some way. They numb out to something. That's what addiction is. It's like, how do I not feel what I'm feeling right now? Well, I'll go eat some sugar, or I'll have a caffeinated drink. You know what I mean? It's like, or I'll go drink a beer or whatever, right? So how do we live within our own skin and start feeling peace about who we are, where we're going, and forgive ourselves? I think that's the biggest lesson that I had to learn, was forgiveness of myself, and stop beating myself over small little insignificant things that kept tearing me apart. So
that's powerful.
Yeah, I think parents in general, but I can speak for like the mom perspective. I think we, especially in that growth, when you are wanting to grow, I think you can sometimes become focused on that you aren't where you want to be, or I yelled at my kids, or oh man, and start grappling with, where we all want to keep growing, but we don't give ourselves, that forgiveness element, that grace of like, no, I'm actually exactly where I need to be. And it's about like enjoying the process of who you become. And it's never, you're never like fully arrived. You never, in entrepreneurship or parents, it's not just like until they're 18 years old and then I've done my job as a mom. I think it's just learning to like embrace the process, the everyday, the in between, the small little micro shifts and changes that make big changes over time. So I think that's like super key, Jason. What you just like pointed out in your whole story is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, and we're all amazing, I do this talk, I call it Aspire for Miracles, because there's a lot more to my story that I haven't shared, that miraculously, like how I met my wife and just all these experiences that happened once I started living right, and once I started making different choices, you just see miracles show up. And it's, and we can all have those miracles, and all we got to do is just keep moving forward. And so, I love what you guys are doing because you're filling a void right now and a big need right now in the marketplace, especially for young entrepreneurs. And I know that's kind of your target audience is, young moms that are just kind of rising up and building a family and how do I do this to where I can create a side hustle or, because we're in the gig economy right now. There's all kinds of different side hustles that we can do. And you guys have, mastered a very specific niche in the market and you guys are teaching amazing things and really you're creating community around it too, which is what I love. And so, we're excited to work with you on a deeper level, especially with the Fam Project and help create more awareness around what you guys are doing and get more people involved with that. Cause like I said, I'm an affiliate marketer by nature. That's my superpower. I love connecting. I'm a massive connector. And so I love putting pieces together. You guys are a big piece of that. So, I'm going to woo you, which is my number one strength in the Strengths Finder is woo, win others
Oh,
over.
nice.
Woo
I love it.
with the woo.
So Jason, tell people a little bit about the Fam Project. As we're wrapping up the episode here, where can they find more information about it? I know it's launching in different cities and things like that.
Yeah.
What is it exactly? And I mean, at least what is the next iteration of it going to be? And where can they find more information about it?
Yeah. So the first product that we're actually coming out with is called Brand My Family. Brand My Family is basically where, in business, we have mission statement, vision statement, core values, all these things when it comes to your business. Yet, are we that intentional in how we're living our family culture, right? And so, Josh and Ashley Latimer, who we've partnered with, actually created this. And for the last 10 years, they've been living this lifestyle where they created this whole environment to really up-level their family and to teach entrepreneurship to their kids, which I think is ultrally important for us to be able to continue to nurture that in our children. And so, they even have a crest, a logo that you create for your family and just, all of these really cool things that most people don't do. And so, what we're doing is launching that and they can actually see we gave you guys a link that you can share with your audience so that if they want to do it, it's a challenge, but it'll take you through 10 days to really, how do you hyper communicate? There's some funny nuances to it. If you know Josh and, I know you guys know Josh and Ashley, they're just a hoot. They're hilarious. And so that's one of the products that we're starting off with. In Arizona, we actually own a bounce house company here. And so we're all about creating community involvement. How do we connect with people? So we acquired that company because now we provide the fun for HOA events and for large events. And so that's how we're getting out into the community right now. And so we're creating a model here in Arizona that we want to expand across the country. And so, everything starts with the first steps. You know what I mean? It's even though I got this grandiose vision of where we want to be, we just got to start where we're at right now. And unfortunately, in 2020, March 6th, 7th, and 8th, we were going to launch one of our products, which is a deals discount app. And then all of a sudden, March 12th, 2020, we were completely shut down, and that was all our alternatives to the screen, right? How do we get kids off the screen? Well, take them out of the house, right? Go spend time with them, do something different, And so that kind of put a damper on that. But now I feel like we're getting way beyond this and it's time now to come back out. So, we're relaunching, if you will, and we're excited about what we're doing. We have a big event this weekend. There'll be about 10,000 people there. We're supplying about 30 bounce houses for them. So it's going to be fun, and, anyway, so this is what we're up to, just how do we create connection with each other? And then how do we pull in the right resources? We call it the Fam Network, the ultimate family place for all things family. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
So good, Jason. Thanks so much for being on the show. I know you're leaving our audience inspired and taking action. We always tell our Rainmakers, don't just listen, just find something and take action on it. Yeah. Maybe it's, hey, I need to have a conversation with someone about some of this childhood stuff. Right. It's a counseling. It's a conversation with your spouse. Maybe it's something about stepping into this new thing. Whatever that thing is that's jumping out to you on this episode, go do it now. Go do it now. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jason, for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Sounds great, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a strategy call with one of our coaches.
If you want to do that, go to makeItRainMomma.com/podcast. That's Momma, MOMMA. MakeItRainMomma.com/podcast. And you can check out the case study of our Rainmaker program, as well as book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our coaches.